On October 4th, 1967, one of the most famous and well-documented UFO sightings in the history of Canada occurred in the small fishing village of Shag Harbour, located on the south shore of Nova Scotia, Canada. Multiple independent witnesses would see a series of strange lights over the bay. In this episode, we will explore one of Canada's best-known UFO sightings, an event that came to be known as the Shag Harbour Incident. On October 4th, 1967, several hours before the residents of Shag Harbour would spot the unidentified lights in the sky, others would report strange activity in the skies as well. At 7:15, Air Canada Flight 305 was flying over the area of Saint-Jean, Quebec, which is around 475 miles away from Shag Harbour. In flight, two individuals would report seeing something strange in the air. Captain Pierre Charbonneau and First Officer Robert Ralph saw an unknown object outside the left window that was tracking with them. The captain described the craft as very bright and rectangular, with a string of smaller lights following behind it. At 7:21 p.m., there was some sort of quiet explosion which engulfed the craft in a blue cloud, and then it disappeared. Halifax Harbour, around 150 miles northwest of Shag Harbour, would report strange lights in the sky as well. Around 10 p.m., local radio stations, the police, and newspapers started getting flooded with calls from residents seeing strange lights flying throughout the area. Then, an hour later or so, just after 11 p.m. local time, a group of Shag Harbour residents would spot a series of strange orange lights over the harbor. There were 4 orange lights over the water around 800 feet away, or somewhere around the vicinity of half a mile. The lights would flash in random patterns for a few minutes and then suddenly dashed straight toward the water. The lights of the craft appeared to be either right on the surface or just underneath it. Still, the lights didn't vanish completely, as evidenced by dozens of witness reports. Many of the witnesses believed at this point it was a plane that had crashed in the water. During this time, a fisherman called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Barrington to report the incident. Within the next 10 minutes, the station started receiving dozens of phone calls. That night, there were already several constables on patrol in the area. Constable Ron Pound was in the area and saw the strange lights over Shag Harbour. Once he spotted them, he started heading closer. As he arrived at the shore, he met with other constables, police officers, and witnesses. The group was confused and debated what to do next and who to call. As this was occurring, the 4 lights on the craft changed from orange to yellow, and it began moving away further from the shore and leaving some type of yellow foam on the surface. At least 30 residents witnessed the event, and they described the craft as being 60 feet with 4 lights, around 10 feet tall, and having a dome shape. The craft began sinking at this point, and witnesses then reported hearing a whistling sound similar to a bomb. This was followed by a whooshing sound, and lastly, a loud bang. As they believed it was an airline accident at this point, fishermen and police hopped on their boats so that they could rescue any survivors. At this time, the Coast Guard had already been contacted and were on their way. As they arrived, the light was nowhere to be found, but there was a strange yellow foam on the surface of the water. It looked like sea foam, but clearly wasn't. No one, including the elder fisherman, knew what the substance was. The boats continued sailing through the water and the strange foam, but found no wreckage nor any people. Around 3 a.m., the search ended. Several air traffic control centers were contacted, and there would be no reports of missing aircraft in the vicinity that day. On October 5th, a Canadian Navy ship called the HMCS Granby arrived in the area. This naval ship was equipped with advanced systems that locate debris. The ship also had specially trained drivers who could search the sea floor. For several days they looked, but found nothing. For years, no new significant developments would occur in the case, until the year 1993. Then two investigators, Chris Stiles and Doug Ledge, would uncover some fascinating information. After speaking with witnesses, military and ex-military, it was determined the object had been tracked by the United States Navy. After the craft disappeared, it traveled around 25 miles near a U.S. military base at Government Point. The purpose of this base was for tracking submarines in the North Atlantic Ocean. As the object arrived in the waters near Government Point, it stopped and held its position for 3 days. The U.S. Navy arrived and positioned several ships over the object. Not knowing what the object was, the Navy didn't engage. The Navy would soon discover something interesting. Another craft came in along with the other object. It is thought this craft came to help the original one. Still unsure what to do, the Navy waited for 7 days on top of the objects. After 7 days, a Russian sub was detected in the North Atlantic and several ships had to be relocated. While this was happening, the two crafts moved away and traveled toward the Gulf of Maine. As the Navy followed the crafts with a few vessels, they easily moved further and further away. At some point, at a good distance, the crafts rose up from the surface of the water and flew away at lightning speeds. As mentioned, this is quite a popular case from Canada. It seems to be relatively unknown outside the country, though. The case features unidentified submersible objects, or USOs. This type of unexplained phenomena has gained a lot of attention in past years, as there have been several cases involving them. Many believe that extraterrestrials live, or at the very least hide, in the deep parts of the ocean. It's documented as well that several sonar readings from the military have picked up strange activity in the ocean. On some cases, objects picked up have been reported traveling thousands of miles per hour under the surface of the water. In the 1990s, as this case was re-examined, all the witnesses remained steadfast in their stories. In addition, the ufologists were able to speak with several military officers who witnessed the event. Most had to remain anonymous due to fear of losing their pension. One interesting fact in the case concerns the strange yellow foam on the water. It's not clear to this day what it was or what could have caused it. No sample was collected. Was this regular sea foam that was somehow altered by the object, or was this a substance given off by the craft? This continues to be a solid UFO case to this day. There was never any sort of wreckage found on the floor of the ocean, which wasn't that deep as well. With multiple independent witnesses and much documentation on the event, it is one that adds support to the belief that extraterrestrials are visiting our planet. One final point is that most believe that the lights or what had crashed in the sea was an airline crash. This adds validity to the case, since there's really no doubt that something was seen by many independent witnesses on that night.